And this is Good Morning IMTS. And now, live from the IMTS TV studio in Chicago, Illinois, here's your host, Emily Barta.
Good morning and welcome to Day 6, the last day of IMTS 2018, where dreamers and doers connect. I'm your host, Emily Barta, and this is Good Morning IMTS. The Die in the Day scavenger hunt has been wildly popular here at the show. I sat down with the group leader of automation, robotics, and manufacturing at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, Lonnie Love, to find out all about it. I'm sitting here with Lonnie Love from Oak Ridge National Laboratory. He is the group leader of automation, robotics, and manufacturing, and we're going to talk about the brand new Die in the Day scavenger hunt. So Lonnie, what is the Die in the Day scavenger hunt?
So the idea is that we're using additive manufacturing and showing how it can radically transform the tool and die industry. Tooling is generally one of the longest lead items in every form of manufacturing, and so we thought that as a challenge, we would develop some new technologies with some of our partners and be able to demonstrate that every day we're going to print, machine, and then utilize a brand new die. So it's a die a day, folks. So 5 days, 5 dies. It's going to be extremely exciting.
Well, where did the idea come from?
So after, the real breakthrough for us was in 2014 at IMTS, where we worked with Local Motors, Cincinnati Incorporated. We unveiled the Cincinnati BAM and we 3D printed the first full-scale car. That generated a lot of excitement, but we realized soon after that really the killer application, I tell everybody there's 3 killer applications for additive: tooling, tooling, and tooling. And so, in this year, in talking to what we wanted to do at IMTS, said let's just really focus on tooling. Let's do a die a day, pull in many partners, and have everybody be able to work around the showroom and see how we can rapidly design, make, and use tooling at a rate that's unheard of.
Well, there are many, many different dies out there. So what dies were used in the Die in the Day scavenger hunt?
So what we decided this year is we're going to be using steel. We're working with Lincoln Electric and Wolf Robotics. They're going to be printing with a robot a die, and then Mazak is going to be machining it. And then one of the composites institutes is going to be actually using them to make composite parts. And so we have a motorcycle valve cover, a automotive valve cover, a business card holder. There's 5 different devices that we've made this week. And hopefully some people got to pick some up and see the actual process and get excited about how additive could radically change their business in the near future.
Well, speaking of the process, there are 5 steps to the process of the Die in the Day scavenger hunt. Step number 1 is 3D print the dies. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So about a year and a half ago, we started working with Wolf Robotics and Lincoln Electric. Wolf Robotics is a systems integrator. They do a lot of robotic welding. Lincoln Electric is a welding company, and so we started demonstrating that we could use their technology, we could expand its capabilities, expand the materials, and so start to 3D print a near net shaped die. So we have a start plate and we printed the die on top of it, and then we take it and we're going to shift it over then to Mazak. Mazak then machined the surfaces to give us the requirements that we need, and then we 3D scan it to make sure that it has the surface finish we need, and then you put it into service and start making parts.
Okay, well, specifically going to step 2, which is machine the 3D printed dies. Tell us more about that.
So this is an area that to me is getting to be very, very exciting. GE made big news a couple of years ago saying that they were going to try to produce 10,000 additive manufacturing systems over the next 10 years. If you look at the machine tool industry, that's not a big number. And so what's really exciting is seeing companies like Mazak start looking at, rather than making a 3D printer, can we make a machine tool that is a machine that actually can both subtract and add? And so Mazak, we're partnering with them on being able to do things like take the die, we can print it with the Lincoln system, put it in the machine, and machine it to whatever surface finishes we want. But we can actually go well beyond that now. So one of the things that's really exciting is when you start looking at tooling, we can actually go beyond how tools are typically made. We can, by having additive capabilities, a lot of people are thinking about putting in cooling passages. That's fairly easy to do with additive, very hard to do with traditional manufacturing. But we can also go multi-material, and this is where it gets to be really exciting. Usually in like stamping dies, on those edges, they wear out pretty quickly. So can we have one material that's stiff and strong in some areas, and then be able to put site-specifically high-strength materials that are wear-resistant just on those edges? And so with things like DMG Mori has a hybrid system, Mazak has a hybrid system, by having this ability to selectively put in better materials in some areas, it's going to extend the life of the dies. Also, you can get to the point where you can repair the dies. So when you're using a die and you're finding that it's getting out of spec, you can actually put it in the machine, scan it, look to see where there's some differences, add some material where you need it, machine it down to the surface finish you want, and you're back into business. But doing it fast. I mean, one thing that is abundantly clear about manufacturing is we need to go fast. Speed is where everything is, and so speed's our future, and so we need to be focusing on technologies that enable us to do things like a die in a day. If you can make a die in a day, you can adapt faster than your competition. So, and get into full-scale production. So we're really excited about this demonstration. We think that it's going to cause a lot of people to rethink about where manufacturing is going in the near future.
All right. Well, step 3, use the 3D printed dies to mold parts. Explain that for us.
So normally you will have some sort of a die and you're going to shape metal, shape plastics around that mold. And so we partnered with IACME, they're a composites institute, and they have a compression forming system. So you have a male and a female die, and they'll take a carbon fiber reinforced plastic, put it inside the die, stamp it, and have your part in seconds. So, and that's another area I think that there's tremendous opportunity, which is in these carbon fiber reinforced materials. You'll see, if you came to our booth this week, you would have seen that we had a fender that was a composite fender that we made up in Detroit, where it was the same basic idea. It's a stamping die, but we're stamping carbon fiber reinforced plastics. They'll be much lighter, much stronger, really trying to drive to where we can get cars that are lighter, better fuel economy. So this is all knitting everything together, but it all starts at the tooling. It all starts at the die. So that's where this is all trying to lead towards, is showing the art of what's possible with these new technologies.
All right. Step 4, which is scan parts to ensure that they meet tolerances. Very important. Explain a little bit more.
So when we're printing, your accuracies are not as good as in machining. And also things can shift when you're machining, so you have a lot of internal stresses in the parts. So we want to make sure that after we've printed, we've done heat treatment, we then go and we machine it. When we're done machining, we want to make sure that it's within the specifications of whatever the parts are. And so we're working with another partner on rapidly showing that you can, after you've printed, machined, scan it, and get a quick verification that this part is within specifications, and you can go into production.
All right. Well, step 5, that's the last step. Display final dies and components. What does that mean?
So here it's, okay, great, we demonstrated that we could make the dies, but how durable are they? Do they really work? And so we're going to be putting these dies into work here at the show. We demonstrated all week long that these dies can actually be put into service, used in traditional machine tools, and make real parts. So people saw this week as they walked around. They see all of these steps. They saw the dies being put in these machines, making parts and parts coming off. The full manufacturing cycle. So imagine 5 new products made on just a handful of machines in 1 week. Normally the tooling takes 6 weeks minimum to get one die. So we're doing it in 1 day.
So in 1 day, we made a die, not a prototype,
Right.
not a test,
Right.
not an experiment. This is an actual die that can be used, could walk out the door and be sold or be used?
Absolutely, absolutely. As a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago, we had a project with Whirlpool, refrigerator company, and we had made, through the same process, made a die for them and provided it to them for just testing. We thought they were just going to be experimenting with it. And lo and behold, they call us back and they'd made 74,000 parts on a stamping die in 1 week. So, and again, if you came by our booth, you saw those parts laying out, you saw the die. It's really showing how we can have a significant impact on both. We talk a lot about time, because time is money, but these are also very inexpensive dies. The costs are measured in thousands of dollars rather than tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it impacts every form of manufacturing. Everything you touch, everything that we work with is usually made with a die. And so what we're really excited about, and IMTS has been kind of, for us, the place that we see is unveiling new technologies and new capabilities. We're demonstrating where the tool and die industry is going to go. We're not doing additive just to say we're going to be printing parts. We're looking at additive to identify what are target high-value markets that can be transformed with the evolution of additive systems. To us, the tool and die market is critical. The next is foundries. You know, where we're going, and my hope is that, you know, to prep, it would be fantastic to come back at the next IMTS and we have a digital foundry that's making big steel dies at rates of hundreds of pounds an hour. That will transform manufacturing.
Well, we've witnessed the growth of additive manufacturing firsthand here at IMTS. Why do you believe that it has become so necessary?
Well, I think to the point that I made earlier, speed. You know, we as manufacturers, it's critical that we are very responsive to customers. If we look at the customers of the future, it's the young generation. They're the instant gratification. They have like highly customized articles. You know, Local Motors, the whole vision of the 3D printed car is driven towards mass customization. So I think that we need to be prepared. And in our vision at Oak Ridge, our vision is that provide and develop and provide tools that will enable manufacturers to move at the speed of light. We want to move as fast as we can.
Well, getting back to speed, of course.
Right, exactly.
Well, how does additive manufacturing have the potential to revitalize the tool and die sector in the U.S.?
I think it has the potential to really do a number of things. You know, every automotive company we've talked to says the same thing. They spend $200 million to $400 million per year per model of car on tooling. Aerospace spends a lot of money on tooling. Even, like I said, appliances. It touches every aspect of manufacturing, every aspect of products. The problem is there's been a steady decline in the United States in terms of tool and die. And so we see, and part of this is intentional and part of this we didn't anticipate, we see these new additive tools as revitalizing that industry. We've lost about 70% of the tool and die companies in the United States in the last 15 years. We see this as a rebirth of it. And it's doing not just the technology, but the workforce. The big question is where are we going to get the workforce to revitalize this industry? And one thing is very clear, printing is really cool. Yeah. Printing is exciting. Young people get it. Yeah. They get it better than anybody I've ever seen. I find young students coming and working at our manufacturing demonstration facility, they think differently. And so what we see is the two-pronged approach of develop the technology and then get young people working around some seasoned engineers and seasoned tool and die craftsmen, and let's just remake the whole tool and die sector. I think we have a window of opportunity, and I think that this week, hopefully, if you saw what we were doing, you're going to look back in 5 years and go, "Wow, I saw where this started."
Well, to wrap this up, why are demonstrations like the Die in the Day scavenger hunt really important and add to the growth of additive manufacturing?
So I learned a valuable lesson in 2014 at IMTS, and you know, Jay Rogers, I give him full credit, came here from Local Motors and said, let's 3D print a car. And we had 9 months to develop the technology and to pull in the partners. The other thing is partners, is working with industry. No one can do big things by themselves. And so what we found was having these moonshots are critical for accelerating the development and demonstration of the technology, and do it in a grand way. The people that are going to really understand the technology are right here at IMTS. And so we always see IMTS as kind of the bright star on the horizon that we need to be shooting towards. That when we want to make something new, pick these deadlines that are extremely tight, commit to doing something that sounds absolutely ludicrous, but that if we're successful, it's going to cause people to rethink manufacturing. I can't tell you how many times we've had people come up to us and say, you know, in 2014 when we saw you guys 3D print that car, that made us rethink additive. Because everybody at the time was thinking you could make something the size of this coffee cup. That coffee cup would take you a couple of days, and then now we're completely different.
We're completely different, but we're not completely out of time for you to check out the Die in the Day scavenger hunt. There are a few hours left here of IMTS 2018, so be sure to head over to the Emerging Technology Center in the West Building, booth 431609. And that was Lonnie Love, the group leader of Automation, Robotics, and Manufacturing at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. The Tech Spotlight is a look at new products, innovative technologies, and emerging trends in the manufacturing industry found at IMTS 2018. In today's episode, Aslan Moini takes us on the journey of the die in the Die in the Day scavenger hunt that Lonnie Love and I just discussed.
This is Aslan with IMTS TV, and today we're going to take a journey. We're going to look at the movement, the progression, and how to 3D print a die part. Step one, we're going to start over in North Building, and we're going to meet our friends at Lincoln Electric, Wolf Robotics, where we're actually going to 3D print the new die part. Tom, can you tell us about this new machine and Lincoln's new initiative in the industry?
Sure, Aslan. The system that we have and the technology that we have can print very large pieces of metal. With this, we can achieve much better cost points, larger scale with 3D printing, and do things like this project that we have with Oak Ridge, where we're printing a die in a day. So the example that we have on the die in a day is taking a base plate material, doing the near net build of the die outline, and then that will go to the next stage and get machined down into the actual die piece that we have. Lead time on dies is huge. Typically, it can be on the order of 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 16 weeks. If you get a big die, it can take forever to get a die, right? And we're trying to show that we can do this in a much quicker manner, right? By going into printing down that near net shape, you have way less to machine, and with that, the overall process is much quicker.
Step two, we're going to South, visiting our friends at Mazak, and from there, we're going to get this newly 3D printed die part, and we're going to machine it. So Mike, tell me about the process of machining this 3D printed die.
Okay, we're going through a die in a day process. So we've already done the additive portion where the Wolf robotics system added the material to the plates. Now we've moved it to our booth where we're going to go ahead and machine the die to a finished machine shape so it can be used in the press.
How do you see this advancing the industry and helping the industry?
Yeah, responsiveness I think is the biggest issue where, maybe to do the die out of a solid piece of material would take quite a long time. With the additive process, we can probably shorten the time to getting a part into a press and getting parts manufactured.
Can you explain to us how the machining process works?
Yeah, this is a 5-axis machining center, vertical spindle with a tilt trunnion table. So it gives us the capability of doing all the features on the part, blending the radiuses that are incorporated in the design of the die.
Step three, from there, we're going to stay in South and visit IACME and show how this newly 3D printed die part can make molds. So John, can you just, in your words, tell me the progression and the benefits of using 3D printed dies in mold making?
The value in this is kind of twofold. One is we're demonstrating the capacity to make molds for production in a very short time frame and at lower cost. In addition, we're showing I think paving a way for demonstrating this at larger scale. Just as additive has shown great inroads in producing polymer molds at scale, we see there being, especially in the composites world, benefit for producing metal molds at scale as well.
Step 4, we're going east. We're going to the east building where we're going to visit QVI, Quality Vision International, and we're going to make sure that the newly molded parts fit specific standards. So we're going to scan them and make sure everything is up to standard. Right now we're walking around seeing this die-in-a-day process, seeing from one company to another, and it's very intriguing. How do you see 3D printing evolving, and how do you see it helping the industry in the near future?
Well, 3D printing is, from my point of view, it's already a fact of life. It's there in manufacturing and will continue to evolve. Where we participate is that through the 3D scanning point of view is if you can 3D print something, you can probably measure it best with a 3D scanner, because a 3D scanner is really like a 3D printer in reverse, okay? So we capture everything that's in front of you. It doesn't matter what the shape is, and that's where the 3D scanning comes in. So as time goes on, as more and more parts become 3D printed, I believe 3D scanning will be a much bigger component of the whole inspection arsenal of what people are using to measure parts.
And step 5, we're going to finish right here in West and visit Oak Ridge National Lab so we can discuss the importance of additive 3D printing, additive technology in the tool and die sector. So Anjay, can you tell me about how this die-in-a-day, how additive manufacturing plays a role in the tool and die sector today?
We are showing that we can do parts in very short period of time, and we can do them locally. We can show the final demo, we can show the product, and we can show the technology is ready now, not 10 years from now. It's something new, something that potentially it will not replace the classic way of doing parts, but it will help them find new markets and create new parts that so far they haven't been possible to do. Very often it takes maybe 6 months to get the part, where right now it could be weeks. We believe that many of those parts will be actually quite cheaper to make, and they could be made locally.
And that's it. Start to finish, you see how easy it was, how quick it was, how efficient it was. Additive manufacturing and building dies. Again, this is Aslan with IMTS TV. We hope you'd enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon.
In the second episode of Tech Spotlight, Hannah Combs introduces us to Cisco, who is displaying a single unified plan-to-business network designed specifically for manufacturers.
I'm Hannah Combs with IMTS TV, and I'm here in AMT's Emerging Technology Center dedicated to digitalization. With a growing emphasis on Industry 4.0, Industrial Internet of Things, more and more manufacturers are adopting digital tools needed to drive their business forward. Reflective of that is Cisco's display here in the Emerging Technology Center. A leader in IT and cybersecurity, Cisco is showcasing a single, unified plant-to-business network designed specifically for manufacturers. Their presence in the booth here today is representative of digital transformation on a global scale and how it can be critical for those use cases on the shop floor. What we have behind us is a visual representation of all of the elements necessary to build a digitally connected factory. All of these elements make up essentially what is the infrastructure for that communication necessary to have a fully connected shop floor. Cisco is trying to emphasize these tools and show them in a use case that is more viable for machine tool builders and automation builders, reflective of those here at IMTS. We have a few examples behind us, such as with an integration with a Mazak machine that shows the viability specifically for a machine tool. We have specific examples here that are designed to speak directly to machine tool builders and automation builders, reflective of those that are here at IMTS. One example with integration of an IoT-enabled connectivity to the Mazak machine that's pictured here behind the wall. Visitors might know Cisco on a global scale, but what they might not know is the role it's trying to play specifically with the machine tool builders and the automation builders. What we also have here is not only the essential components necessary to integrate this, but a case scenario that shows you the layout of the system. And one of the key points they're trying to make is the simplification of the process, making this a viable option across the entire shop floor. I'm Hannah Combs with IMTS TV.
On tap for today are numerous activities and events happening throughout McCormick Place. Even though it is the last day of IMTS 2018, there is still plenty to do and to see. On the Making Chips podcast at noon on the main stage in the Grand Concourse, Jason and Jim speak with AMT, the Association for Manufacturing Technology's Peter Eelman, and Hanover Fair's USA, Larry Turner. They will bring the IMTS experience to a close as they rehash the most important takeaways from this past week. Today's topic at the Hanover Mesa Solutions Theater is the next generation. These last 4 sessions at IMTS 2018 start at 10 a.m. and conclude at 11:50 a.m. in the East Building, Level 2, Booth 121847. Session topics include bionics for education, bionic ants, virtual powertrain manufacturing, and biological transformation. The SmartForce Student Summit aims to introduce students and teachers from elementary through post-secondary schools to exciting high-tech careers in manufacturing. The Student Summit has hands-on challenges, learning labs, an air rocket challenge, mentor labs, apprentice competitions, and more. This year's Student Summit is still open today from 9 a.m. until 3 p.m. in the C Hall of the North Building. The keynote presentation today in the SmartForce Student Summit is by NASA astronaut Captain Wendy Lawrence, who will talk about her experiences in space. This is Captain Lawrence's second orbit into the world of the Student Summit. The IMTS store will be open until 4:30 p.m. today. Items sold include jackets, t-shirts, pullovers, hats, water bottles, tumblers, and more. Be sure to stop by and pick up a memento of your momentous trip to IMTS 2018 in the East Building, Level 2, Booth 121177. Everything today is half price in the IMTS store. In fact, all special attractions are open all day today, so be sure to stop by and be inspired before you head home. If you would like more information on anything pertaining to IMTS 2018, be sure to visit imts.com. IMTS Shorts are a short look into tips and tools that you can use to guide you through the expo floors and enhance your experience at IMTS 2018. In today's episode, Katie Carey takes us shopping in the IMTS store.
Looking for a piece of IMTS to take home in your suitcase? Then look no further than the IMTS store. With plenty of IMTS merchandise to choose from, the IMTS store is your one-stop for exclusive IMTS show gear. Be sure to participate in our social media contests for chances to win store vouchers and exclusive giveaways. The IMTS store is located in the East Building, Level 2, open from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Make sure you take time to visit the IMTS store and take IMTS home with you.
There are many types of groups walking around the show floor at IMTS 2018. Bosses and staff, colleagues, friends, and even husband and wife teams, like the one sitting next to me. This is Terry and Molly Keene, who are the co-owners of Tech Manufacturing Incorporated out of Spokane Valley, Washington. Now, Molly, you've been coming to IMTS for quite some time. Talk to us about your very first visit.
Well, the very first visit we'd gone to a small show in Oregon, and we kind of liked it, and so someone said, well, why don't you go to the show in Chicago? So we came to the show in Chicago, and I just loved it. And in fact, we had only signed up to do a couple of nights stay here, and so we hadn't had a chance to see everything that we wanted to see. So we went back to the hotel, and it's pouring rain outside, and everybody's worried about the weather. We didn't even care about the weather. We were having such a great time at the show. And we go back to the motel, and we asked if we could stay one more night, and they said, okay, sure. And there was this a couple of girls next to us that were supposed to have reservations. I think we took their room because they said they had to put them up at some other place. But we loved it so much, so anyway, so we had a great time, and I've been addicted ever since. So
had such a great time the first time that you extended your stay, but since that first time, you've come back time and time again.
Every time.
Terry, what brings you back?
The opportunity to see different vendors, talk to people one-on-one about issues that you have, to delve deeper into the discussion. You can look at a magazine and get an idea of the technology that's out there, but when you are able to just sit down and talk to somebody, you can dig deeper, find more of the information that you need to solve your problems.
Well, problems need to be solved, products need to be purchased, machines need to be looked at and tooled. What specifically are you looking for at IMTS 2018, Molly?
Well, I think that one of the first things that we want to look at is a new piece of equipment. Some of ours is getting a little bit older, and we went to our Swiss screw machine product dealer, and we looked at their machines, and they are just so awesome. They do so many things that you can build a part, and it comes out done, and it's ready to go, and it's fascinating to watch those pieces of equipment make parts. It's just great.
All right. Terry, what have you experienced at your time here so far this year?
Well, one thing we were real excited about when we went to see Citizen is that they have this technology where it's called LFV, I believe, that changes the behavior of the servo on the Z1 axis to control the chips that are produced when you machine a part. Stainless steel and plastic parts are can be difficult to machine because you end up with a bird nest around your part, and with this technology, the long stringy chips disappear and look more like cast iron.
Molly, what have you experienced so far?
One of the things I experienced was when we went into the tooling area. They have a robot there that can kind of interact with you, and it was just fun to do that. But as she says, you get such a nice one-on-one whenever you have a problem. You want to talk to somebody about tooling. You know, they can help you because they've got so many people there, and you go to different booths and whatnot, and they have suggestions as to how to do something, how to correct a problem. It's just great to be able to talk to people. So.
Well, to wrap it all up, Terry, why is it a really good idea for people to attend IMTS?
I guess I kind of touched on that before, is that I mean, it's a big investment in time, it's a big investment in dollars to come to the show, but you can see so much, solve so many problems, see solutions to problems that maybe you don't even have today, but when you experience them a year later, you've got a leg up on how to solve that issue.
Molly, what would you like to add to that?
Well, I think you pretty much said it all. It is fantastic because we come with certain ideas as what we want to look at and what we want to see, but we never stop going to just the people we want to see. We go all over the place because you can find so many ideas and so many things that you hadn't thought of, and then you go, there goes the light bulb, and it goes, aha moment, and you go, so it's just fantastic to be here. And even if we went through it twice, I don't think we could see everything we wanted to see. So that's why we love coming here.
Well, you heard it from Terry and Molly Keene. If you are looking for some aha light bulb moments, you need to be sure to add IMTS to your every other year calendar. That was Terry and Molly Keene, the co-owners of Tech Manufacturing Incorporated. Thank you for joining us for Good Morning IMTS on day 6, the last day of IMTS 2018. Be sure to tune in to IMTS TV online at imts.tv, where we are streaming until 7 p.m. this evening with new content added all day long. And be sure to join us for the IMTS report today at 4 p.m., where AMT, the Association for Manufacturing Technology's Vice President of Exhibitions and Business Development, Peter Ehlman, helps us close out the show. But first, coming up next is Shop Talk, where Bill Herman speaks with Mark Albert, Derek Korn, and Pete Zielinski from Modern Machine Shops about their impressions of IMTS 2018 and predictions for the future. On behalf of everyone here at IMTS TV, have a wonderful day 6 of IMTS 2018, where dreamers and doers connect.
Welcome to another edition of Shop Talk. I'm Bill Herman for IMTS TV. This is probably the coolest show we do all week. This is one of those days when I walk out of here just a little bit smarter by sheer osmosis. Got some wicked smart guys with me this morning from Modern Machine Shop magazine. Joining me is Mark Albert, the editorial director at Modern Machine Shop, Pete Zielinski, editor-in-chief, and Derek Korn, executive editor for MMS. So, guys, you've been here now 6 days. It's day 6 of the show. What have you seen? Let's go around the horn a little bit. Tell me what you saw. Give me an example of a really cool thing you saw in a booth.
I think one of the coolest things is the big screen that is showing all the machines that are being monitored in that booth, as well as booths all over the show, and in some cases in plants in different parts of the country and the world. That's really cool, and it's not just the machine tool builders with those screens, it's control builders, cutting tool people. That's fantastic.
A cool thing, so we're seeing there's a very prominent exhibit of voice actuated, voice recognition, digital assistant for not just a different way of interfacing with the machine tool, but a different way of quickly accessing information on the shop floor. It is an example of one of these technologies that, it appears at IMTS in a given year, and it quite possibly could be really prevalent in the future sometime. So we're seeing other examples of that, like I'm searching for the word, automated guided vehicles, and
Ollie. So now what you saw on the floor, is this kind of like the Hey Siri for manufacturing?
So yeah, the voice recognition thing, yeah, a Hey Siri for manufacturing, but the voice recognition is sort of just the surface element. There's also the challenge of quickly accessing information on the shop floor, and the developers of this technology have put some intelligence behind that. It's one of those things where it seems to have such promise, and you wonder how far that might go.
Very cool. Derek?
So, stepping back from the technology, the cool thing that I see is all the exhibitors that I visited were happy, right? Wow. It was busy. The show was busy. There were a lot of people here. But then the flip side is all the automation you see. So you think automation is like there's conflicting things, but the automation lets the people do more important tasks. So the robot can be loading, unloading, doing the manual kind of things normally, and they can be doing things like inspecting or deburring or whatever they need to do to add value to the product.
Can I add another comment about automation? Clearly, there's a shift to a focus on using automation to leverage existing capacity of equipment and the people, and that's in response to the skills shortage. You have to make more with the people you have, because finding new people is so tough. That's why we need robotics and pallet changers and everything else.
That's a good comment. I was in some factories earlier in the year, and the guy said, people think we're automating because we want to get rid of people. No. We just can't find people to do it.
Yeah, automation is becoming a given. And your question, Bill, was a cool thing we saw. There's one booth in particular that comes to mind, a major machine tool exhibitor, and there's something I didn't see, which is a lot of different examples of automation. Flashy, we could do this kind of automation automation because they say there are so many different choices now. It is such a prevalent demand. It is so frequently a part of our relationship with the end user. There's no point in showing off flashy examples. It just gets in the way. People come to us asking to automate, and we need to have the conversation on their terms. You don't have to push automation anymore, and that is a striking development that we're seeing become visible this year.
Yeah, and a lot of the automation is roll it up, plug it in, and go. So a lot of the problems with interfacing robotic systems, that's gone away. It's there, it goes to work, you move it to another machine. That's really made it easy to implement automation, and that's a big deal.
Very cool. Now, you guys are as plugged in out there in the field as any group of guys can be, so I don't imagine there's much here that caught you by surprise, but Derek, starting with you, was there anything you saw out there like, hey, I hadn't seen that before, I'd heard a little bit about it but hadn't seen it? Were there some new things that you saw at IMTS?
So one striking thing to me was visiting with EDM builders. So EDM's been around for a while, and it's kind of a niche thing. It's kind of sort of like additive manufacturing. It has its own place. But the resurgence of that, the very difficult materials to machine, the Inconels, the very strange things like that, EDM is important for that. So there's been very many sales of EDM machines for that type of application, and I guess I wasn't expecting that this show.
How about you, Pete?
Something that's sort of wasn't quite expecting, the role that machine tool companies and even tooling companies in some cases want to play is changing. You associate them with the hardware that they offer, but increasingly they want to talk about, a machine tool company, they want to talk about their software, and they want to talk about what they can do with all of the data about your process if they can get to a point where you feel comfortable giving them that data. There is all kinds of, there always has been, all kinds of intelligence, information pouring out of a manufacturing process. We have the capacity now to marshal and learn things from that data, and the machine tool suppliers in particular increasingly realize they can provide a higher level of value if they can be allowed to partner with the end user at the use of that data.
Very good. Mark?
Well, one of the things that surprised me is in a discussion about a new tool measurement system at the Bloom booth. It's much faster. They can really find out a lot about that tool on the machine. But the comment was metrology becomes a bottleneck when you do a lot of, let's say, unattended operation. Now you have all these parts done at the beginning of the next morning. They have to be measured. We have to move that metrology back onto the machine so that we eliminate that bottleneck and really can take advantage of the untended operation that we get.
You know, picking up on Pete's comment about the automation and the data flow, it seems as if we're moving towards a connection point where manufacturing meets IT a little bit more. We're starting to see a little more presence from Cisco, from Hewlett-Packard, from some others. Do you see that trend continuing as the marriage kind of IT and manufacturing?
I think we do. And one thing that I see is that there's been a shift from a lot of attention to manufacturing processes to business practices. So you have to think about, how do I run my shop, how do I run my plant, and take advantage of having this data. And that's a significant shift that I haven't noticed before at this show.
We can't talk about this show without talking about additive, and I'm sure we'll get to that, but additive is going to help bridge the way into more sophisticated uses of data. Additive manufacturing lends itself very well to digital manufacturing, data-driven manufacturing, because for the most part, the variables, as many as they are, all happen in the same place, and gathering intelligence about input parameters versus output results is particularly amenable to additive manufacturing. So to your question, yeah, in the not too distant future, capabilities like machine learning are going to be very important for getting optimal manufacturing processes, and I think we're first going to see that in that 3D printing space.
And so Doug Woods at our Top Shops workshop yesterday ended our conference with a slide that said, don't think about hiring machine operators or programmers. He listed a bunch of people titles like IT kind of people.
Right.
These are the people you need to hire because you need that data. You need to understand how to apply that to your process. And like, we're all so entrenched, I'm saying we, like I own a machine shop, we're so entrenched in that we kind of don't think outside the box like that, but hiring someone outside of our box is going to be beneficial to our company.
Absolutely. And Doug Woods, the president of AMT, has been a real evangelist for that, as you know, over the last couple of years, trying to lead us forward towards where he sees manufacturing going. Speaking of Job Shops Conference, you also produced the Additive Manufacturing Conference. Very significant, terrific attendance this year. How did it go from your perspective? How was it received by your audience? Pete, you're you wear two hats. You wear two hats. You're also the editor-in-chief of Additive Manufacturing magazine, so I'll start with you on that.
I'm privileged to get to have that role too. The Additive Manufacturing Conference was wonderful. We had the highest attendance we've had. There was, at the beginning of it, HP shared the stage with us to use that platform for a product launch. They used IMTS to launch an additive manufacturing product, a significant move there, as did other additive manufacturing exhibitors launching products here. But the conference, we're no longer at the point where we have to come to this manufacturing audience at IMTS and explain what additive is and make the case for additive. The presentations at the additive conference that got the best response were the ones that were showing the way to take it further, follow a progression of sophistication into ramping up with this technology, using it more effectively. The case for additive has been made. Additive is a significant part of this show now, and the additive conference gets to be a part of that big footprint for additive that is now at IMTS.
Perfect. Now, economies, of course, ebb and flow. Wasn't too long ago we were pulling out of the worst ones in recent memory. Derek, what are you hearing from your readers as you visited with them on the floor? Are they shopping with confidence still? Are they bullish about where we're going in the next 12 or 18?
So the shops the machine shops I've visited are busy. Yeah. Like they're almost to the point they're turning down work, and it's almost nice because they know their niche. So they can turn away work that's outside of their bailiwick, right? So if they're turning a certain size, they're not going to necessarily go after something outside of that range. We want this, so we're going to go after this. And with ERP and all these other technologies, they know what they're solid at, and they don't have to go out these ancillary kind of jobs that they might or might not make money off of.
So here at the show, you feel that they're out ready to buy. They're in a confident posture right now.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you picked up anything different, Pete?
Yeah, they're busy. The show was crowded. The mood was the frenetic comes to mind. It's trying to characterize all of the manufacturing space is hard, and macroeconomic effects ultimately come down to all of our own micro levels. But right now, both the short-term and more importantly the long-term prospects of manufacturing in this part of the world are just wonderful. And I see. Derek is talking about how busy they are. Part of that busyness is they're profitable, and it gives them the chance to look ahead to where they want to be and what platforms do they want to build for the future. And this event is a huge part of that.
Very good. Well, that's a good lead into my final question here. Let's gaze into the Gardner Business Media Modern Machine Shop crystal ball. What are some of the things we'll be sitting on this couch talking about at IMTS 2020?
We're going to be talking a lot about data and software. All the companies, both as here as attendees and as exhibitors, are really focusing on what they can do with software and data. Job shops are starting to think themselves, we're software companies. The exhibitors, we're software companies. They're not getting away from doing great things with great machines, but they are looking at what they can do with computers and data and how they can serve customers better now that they have this technology at their hands.
Guys, see any other perspectives on the horizon 2 years from now?
2 years from now, additive manufacturing. It's a big footprint at the show this year. The additive pavilion for the first time is one. It takes a little walking to get from one end of it to the other, and it's gonna be bigger 2 years from now. This technology is moving into scale production for a growing circle of applications. This is a viable solution, and there are a set of additive technologies that are just near to being proven out sufficiently to reach the market 2 years from now. So I think this is going to be an even bigger platform for additive in 2020.
So robotic automation is everywhere, in the South Hall especially, right? So every machine tool builder has a robot in their booth, essentially. But taking that back, kind of Mark alluded to this before, so yeah, everyone's going after unattended machining, and you have all these parts waiting for you in the morning, and that's great. When you flip the lights on, now you have 1,000 parts. Well, shoot, now I have to sort them, now I have to inspect them. So automated inspection, I think, is going to be big in the coming years.
Very good. Well, everybody here has to promise to come back in 2 years. We're going to replay this tape and see how spot on you were, especially you, Mark.
I'll be back.
Don't go away.
See how we did with our 2020 vision?
Yeah, 2020 vision. That's going to be the name of the program.
Nice.
Thank you for joining us for this edition, this wrap-up edition of Shop Talk. Again, my guests have been from Modern Machine Shop, the Director of Editorial, Mark Albert,
Thank you.
Editor-in-Chief, Pete Solinsky, and Executive Editor, Derek Korn. For IMTS TV, I'm Bill Herman.